What'd you get, Diamond?
Everything.
Hold on. What did you? I'm sorry. I'm texting Tara trying
That's
to
okay. I
get some.
said, what did you get?
Oh, in this box, I got some mixed tiles today.
Oh, yay.
It's really cute. Like they're super, super cute. Oh, I don't know if you can see them. How do you turn that blur off?
Yeah, closer to the closer.
Oh,
Can
and
you see it?
To your left.
Camera.
Yeah.
can you help Diamond know how to set up the tile walls? Or like you guys can walk through because Trisha's going to
Oh,
set those
yeah.
up here.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Trisha, I have to go down. I have to hang a whole slew of other stuff at my place, like bathroom signage and whatever. So I can just do the stars or whatever you want me to do at my place at the same time I'm doing everything else.
I just want your stencil. I heard there's a stencil.
There's two of them.
Figured it out. I have a box.
Oh, yay. Oh my gosh, they're so cute.
They're really cute, and there's a whole box.
Oh,
There's 30 of them.
So many.
that's awesome.
And you're going to go just
So
like
yeah,
that.
Trish, call me on video so it can set this stuff up.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where they go. I need some help.
Well, I would love to come and do it in person, but that's not happening.
No, it's not.
Not right now.
Not right
Maybe,
now.
maybe someday.
Soon, I hope.
Did you get all moved in?
I moved in. I still have to buy a couch. I don't have a couch. But I'm here.
It looks so cute though.
There's stuff everywhere, but I'm here and this area is clean. That matters. So
Are you liking it? It looks like a cute place.
actually, I love it. Like it's very quiet. There's not like a lot of people. There's not traffic. It's gated in. Like no one can get in without a code. Very calm, and it's 5 minutes away from the office. So I'm
Stop it.
satisfied. 5 minutes.
That's so nice.
Only 5 minutes. That's just glorious.
It's a dream.
It is. So I'm satisfied.
Trisha, I was gonna go down in the morning to hang that stuff. So I have two of those. So I can just. When do you want them by? When are you headed to do the other ones?
I haven't talked to Tara, but for Thursday for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, Logan has to be done Thursday because the grand opening's Friday.
Okay. So I have two of them. You can take one of two, or you can have both of them as soon as I get mine done tomorrow.
Okay.
I need to get the stars though from Ashley. She still has them. Do you all have an opinion on where I hang the things?
Yes, and not even just opinions, instructions. So there's
Great.
a very clear plan of where they're supposed to go.
Okay.
For you too, Diamond. There's like, nope, things have to go in a certain spot
Okay.
on the walls.
If you have those, Trisha, if you want to send them to me, I'll just do them all. I'll just do everything at the same time I'm doing everything.
I do know though you want the star wall like where there's mini fridges though, right? That's where you want your stars.
Yeah, I think so. Because that's what you'll see like right when you walk in,
Yeah. Okay.
And it's pretty tall. I made a drive a dock in Canva.
Okay, so it's there now that I can go and look and see. Where are all those magnetic boards going? There's like 8, 10. There's like so many. I mean, there's
Did
a lot.
all the magnet boards get sent to you?
I have a lot. I have a ton of them.
Big ones.
Yeah, really big ones.
I wondered why they hadn't arrived.
They're like it's like 8 or 10 of them, and I don't know what to do. Like I'm just
There's
like,
how
why?
many of them?
There's like 8. I'll let you know when I go back to the office. I'm gonna go to the office and get you.
Shoot.
I have a little how to start on taxes, like basic step by step already, like highlighted, printed, all that stuff. So I was just gonna send that to you. So maybe it'll be easier for you having to like do all the,
Yeah, let's do that.
And then I'll count how many magnetic boards I have, but I literally have a lot.
Hopefully you don't have more than 6. You were only supposed to have 1. And the others were supposed to come here, but I haven't received the others, so they probably all got
Well,
shipped.
I think I have them all because they're all sitting on the bench.
So we're going to need you to haul those to the post office and ship those to us.
Okay. I'm going to have to put them in a box.
Were they all together?
No. I got, there were so the first day I got 3. Then the second day I got another 3. And then I think I got 2 more or 1 more. But all of the markers, all of the little magnetic things, all of the things are in the office.
Would it be easier for her to return them and just order new ones for here?
Well,
You'd have to ship them either way,
True.
right?
so I don't know what's easier.
I think throw them in a box and mail them to us.
Okay, I will go put them in a really big box and I will mail them to you. Do you want markers and magnetic? Do you want the little all the other like because they fit all of it in one big bag? So it's like I don't know.
I don't care as much about the markers or the magnets.
Okay,
I
you
do
just
care
want
about the
four.
boards. Mhm.
Okay, but I do have I think I have all of them. I have a lot of them.
Yeah, there's
way
one.
more than one. I
There's
have way
one.
more than one.
There's one for you, and then there's 5 others.
Well, I have all of them. They're in the office.
Okay, and are they all the same size? I think they're not all the same
Yes.
size. They're all the
They
same
all
size.
are. Yep, they all are the same size. They're the really long. I'll send you a picture as soon as I get there.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back. To be continued. Okay, I'm gonna share my drive again. Okay, what we want to talk about right now is a quick we're going to talk a little bit about answering phones and scripts because I know some of you are going to be answering phones right now and need to know a little bit about scripting. I'm also going to share this where I'm putting this stuff. So I'm going to come over here to chats, right? I need to find where's the new prepares. New tax preparers.
Please
All
don't
okay.
use that one. Please use the other one. Please use the other one.
Why do we have 2?
You created a new one even though one already existed.
Why do I need what's in the other one?
All the stuff we've already been doing for new preparers.
Let me see. Okay, so let's get rid of the other one. Let's not have 2 that exist.
I sent you a message about it, but it's still in chat probably.
I will anything that there's nothing. If anyone ever needs to contact me, chat will never do it. So it will never happen. Let's see. Let's delete that one. Let's hear. Can you change the name of this one then so that I need it to say new preparers all locations? Because are you the admin?
Actually, you might be, but I could be, yeah.
I don't think I am. I think it won't let me do it.
Okay.
Ooh, cute. I like that picture. Here's the link to our training slides for today. And the training slides from today have the links to these other documents, but I can also put them here too. That'll be useful. Okay. Moving on. So let's talk a little bit about scripts. And especially like for you operators, you'll be answering the phones a lot. For Devin and Jeff, you will not be answering the phones as much, but everybody else pretty much will be. So when you answer the phone, this is the basic script that we follow. Say pack tax, this is so-and-so, you know, how can I help you? And like, once you're busy and the phones ring a lot, you mostly just say, would you like to schedule an appointment? Then we ask, have you ever been to our office before? Yes. Although for you new people, this is not a thing, right? Then we ask what their name is. This script here on the left is mostly for returning clients because we want to ask them if they've gotten their stuff already. For new clients, we have other things that we're going to look here for. So for new clients, when they ask us, because they want to know, okay, like mostly for a brand new client, their question is, how much do you cost, right? Like that's mostly what they're calling. They're calling to see how much do you cost, or they've been referred by somebody and they're just calling to schedule. That's kind of the 2 things. Either I've been referred and I'm just scheduling, or I'm new and I'm just calling to see how much it costs. So when they ask, how much do you charge? Here's what we say, right? Say, well, we charge by the form, but our prices are about half of what you'd pay at H&R Block or a traditional CPA firm. And I always try to think like, I want to answer the questions like I would want the answer. You know what I mean? So like, now what would be really great is if we could just say, hey, it will cost $175 to file your taxes. That'd be the best answer if that was the right answer. We would love to be able to give someone the exact number right now so they knew. And we're not withholding that number to try to like trick them and make them think it's going to be cheap, but it's really going to be expensive. Like that's not what we're trying to do. But what we can't do is, when we don't want to do, is give them a real number that's not the real number. And that's what we found is really the problem. Like we really can't tell them over the phone exactly what it's going to be. So in lieu of that, what we can do is try to be as transparent as possible and tell them about what things normally are. Like, and we want to come across here, again, not like we're withholding. It's not like we're just trying to get you through the door and then we'll bait and switch you and then it's going to be a lot of money. Like, no, we're not trying to do that. Really, we're not. So that's why we're saying, Kayla, we charge by the form, but right at the beginning, we say, but our prices are about half of what you paid H&R Block, you know, or a traditional CPA firm. But then I also tell people, you know, our price starts at $150 and our average last year was $180. So just giving them some context, but you can't tell them their taxes will be $150. You can't tell them their taxes will be $180. Like this is not good. This will only cause problems for you later. What we can do is share some of the information, right? So our average price was $180. We started $150. If you have a rental or a side business, most of the people, if you had a rental or you had a side business, were more like $220 to $260. Like, again, I'm not trying to bait and switch them. I'm certainly not trying to lowball them. I'm trying to give them generalities that this is probably where you'll be, but really it's the more complex it is, the more we charge. But even with that, we're always going to be less. We're going to be way less than what you paid H&R Block or what you paid a traditional CPA firm. So that's why, like, we're reaffirming that, right? Sometimes they'll really, 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 really want an exact price. Well, I can't give that to you unless I saw exactly what your tax return is. You know what I mean? Then I could count up all the schedules and figure out what the exact price is, because we do charge per schedule. But people don't realize all the stuff they have. They think they have nothing going on, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I don't have anything going on, so mine should be 150. You're like, no, that's why we tell you the average was 180. 150 is like if you really have nothing, like you got a W-2 and no kids. Okay, like that's what we're talking about at the bottom. So like, I don't even talk a lot about like the 150 stuff, because there are very few people that are actually 150. And again, I don't want to trick people. I don't want people to think that I'm tricking them. So I'll say our average was 180. But do you have any rental properties? Do you have any businesses? If you do, you know, depending on how many of those you have, it's like another 50 or 60 bucks if you have another business, if you have a rental property. So then we just, you know, add on top of that. But always coming back to, but no matter what it is, for the exact same tax return, we're going to be about half of what you would have paid at H&R Block. You know, we're certainly 30 to 50% less than what H&R Block's just normal fee schedule is. So things we can always share. You know, we are always cheaper than H&R Block or a traditional CPA firm. Other big highlights: audit protection comes with everything with no extra fee. Like when you go to H&R Block, they make you pay your like peace of mind fee, right? That you're going to pay an extra 40 bucks so that if anything's wrong, they'll take care of you. Like, well, no, we give that to you no matter what. So like, we're not going to nickel and dime you, all these things, right? Like, we want to be straightforward, but we're also realistic. You know what I mean? It's like, this is where like it's having this conversation. And we found that, you know, some clients, or especially the brand new people, they'll call and maybe they hang up. You know, they don't like the number, or they don't want to, that we can't get an exact number, but most aren't like that. Most really are. And what we try to say is, like, again, pulling it back to, listen, we're always going to be, we say 30 to 50% cheaper than H&R Block. And go read our reviews. Like, and I'll tell them things like, hey, like, I promise, like, we're not trying to hose you in prices. I'm not trying to bait and switch you. It really does depend on what you have, but you can go read our reviews, you know, and see where we are. We want it to be fair. We're not going to trick you with pricing, because we want you to come back every year. So like, you can say things just like I'm saying this to clients on the phone, and it's a lot, but they go, oh, okay, I don't think this person's trying to trick me. Like, we're just being honest. Like, our pricing really is fair, and it's fair. We know it is, because we want you to come back every year. Like, so we're not going to, like, same thing. We're not going to like bring you in this year on a super cheap deal and the next year double your price. And I'll tell people that when they're leaving for the first time too. It's not like that, because they've experienced that at H&R Block, where H&R Block or Jackson Hewitt will have these huge deals, and they'll do these crazy promotions where like you can get your taxes done for $50 or just something totally crazy, or here's $200 off this year, you know, trying to get people through the door, which is all fun and great for that first year. But then you go back the next year and it's like double the price. So I will tell people then too, like, hey, we don't do that. Like our pricing stays consistent. Like usually every few years we up our base price by like $10, but that's it. We're not like suddenly going to charge you double next year. And I'll say again, because like, we don't want you to just come back once. We want you to come back forever. We want you to send your friends to us. So we're going to charge you fair prices. Like say that. I say that to clients, right? And they go, okay, yeah. Like, and it is the truth, right? Like, but we also like have to, like, these really are very aggressively nice prices. These are not excessive prices. But just be willing to talk to them about it. Don't be afraid to talk about the money, and you don't need to be defensive about the money either. Like nobody has to come to us to do their taxes. So the last thing we want to do is act all defensive and huffy about it. You know, like if they don't like our price, like we don't need to fight with them about the price or tell them that it really is a good deal and they just don't know what a good deal is. Like, no, like you don't need to do any of that. Like if people want to use TurboTax, they really can. And I say things to people too, sometimes say, you know, I understand, I do my own taxes. I do. I like doing my own. Like, I get that. Like we're kind of like pulling these things out of the closet from the very beginning, right? Like people are smart. They know, like they understand things. They know when they're being like sold something, right? They know when they're like not being given something that's straightforward. So here we truly don't have a super straightforward price because we don't know what they have on their tax return, and neither do they. If they knew exactly, it'd be sure a whole lot easier to give them a quote, but they don't even know. Now, if it's a client from last year, guess what? Our pricing really hasn't gone up. Or if it's gone up, it's gone up a base price of $10. So even this, I would say, as long as your stuff's about the same, your price should be about the same. We haven't like tripled our pricing or anything like that. So I'm trying to set this expectation from the very beginning that prices can change. And so like a client might come in one year and it's $150, and the next year it's 180, and then the next year it's 160, because they had different stuff going on. And we'll point that out. And it's like, hey, like, especially I love to see if our price ever does drop, like you're looking this year compared to last year, oh man, I'm pointing that out. It's like, hey, and just, you know, you paid $10 less this year because you didn't have that college kid with the tuition anymore. You know, like I'm trying to point those things out. It does change up and down, but it's always a good deal. Like it really is. And telling them, you know, we're priced for regular people, and they always get $20 off their first year. And we give $20 off if they refer anybody to us. So that's another way that a lot of clients keep their price down too, is they send us more of their friends. Cool. We give their friends $20 off. We give them $20 off. But we always have a few people huffy every year that say, well, somebody told me that I could get my taxes done for $130 because it's $150 and I get $20 off and it should be $130. Oh man. Well, guess what? When that client comes to the office, we're not going to fight with them. We're going to do their taxes for $130. So by the time they get to the office, we are just going to do their taxes for $130. We're not going to fight about it. It's not worth fighting about, but we want to prevent that from happening as much as possible. Now, sometimes we would refuse to do their taxes, but that's only like once there was somebody with like 3S Corps and they said that somebody on the phone told them we do it for like $400. Like, okay, we can't do that. Like that was like so absolutely, we could not do that. We had to say, I'm so sorry. I don't know what the miscommunication was. We really can't do that. But otherwise, if someone's been quoted something on the phone and they come in, we're going to do it for that price. And guess who eats it? We do. You know, you make less, we make less, you know, and that's just what's going to happen. So that's better than fighting with the client over $40. So to prevent that, and, you know, the more clear we can be ahead of time, the less heartache we're going to have later, because we really are going to side in like 99% of the time. We're going to side with the client. Like we just are. We're not going to fight with them. It's not worth it. It's just not. We're just going to do the taxes and let them get on their way. And there we go. Right. So being clear in the beginning is going to help. So don't quote an exact price, but also don't be overly scary about not quoting it. You know, you don't have to feel all weird about it. Like, and to do that, if you will use more colloquial language, like if you will take the big words out, right? Talk like a real person. Don't be super formal here. When you start being super formal, people get freaked out and think that you're not a real person, especially when we're talking about money and pricing. And so it matters to say, hey, we're about half of what H&R Block is, but we really care, like we're going to be fair about it. Like talk like it's normal. You're not saying things like, I don't know, our price schedule has this and this and this. And according to this form, it will be an additional this amount of money. Like people don't want to hear that stuff. Like, and you're communicating the same thing, but you're not communicating the same thing. They'll think that you've already lost them. But if you say, yeah, you know, our average is about 180, but if you have any like businesses or rentals or like earned income credit, that type of things, you're probably another 50, 60 bucks on top of that. But no matter what you have, we're always going to be, you know, 30 to 50% less of what you would have paid to H&R Block. So we're, you know, we're not going to hose you. It's going to be good. Like, okay, there you go. Like that really is the message. And it is that informal. And we want it to be that informal because when they call, I mean, you could try call a big CPA firm and ask them what they charge. And whatever they answer, you don't want to answer like that. Like, pick a different answer. That's not the answer that we want. It's too formal. Now, they also have the same problem we do. To quote a person over the phone is really difficult because people think they don't have anything going on and they do, you know? So like that is a big part of the challenge. They don't realize that they actually have 7 forms and 2 kids and, you know, a different amount of things. So it's universally a problem. Where we do better at is talking at their level and making it not scary and seeming like it's okay if they don't schedule, but not like in a snotty kind of way, you know, in just like, hey, we would love to help you. I know we'll do a real good job. You know, if you're still not sure if you want to schedule, can I send you a link to our reviews? You know, you could just check those out and see, there might be some that make sense to you, but like, honestly, like, and I'll tell them, we don't ask people for 5-star reviews. We ask everybody for an honest review. And that's why we have so many. And there are a few people there that hate our guts too. You can read those ones. There's a lot of people that like us, but I think it'll help you get a good feel, you know, for how we treat people. But really, like we charge in a way that we want you to come back forever and we want you to refer all your friends. So that's what keeps our pricing really good, is that we want you to keep coming back. Like, can you see how even from this very first conversation, we're going to be educating clients that we care about them and we want them here and we want them back again. We care about you and we want your referrals. And we're talking about it even from the beginning that, hey, we're going to treat you so good that we hope that you send your people to us. Like that's totally what we want. And that's part of why we're not just going to like charge you some crazy price one year, you know, and who cares if you ever come back? Like that's a total H&R Block move, right? Charge you $650. They don't care if you come back next year. They're going to get their $650 right now, right? Like, no, we don't want to do that because we want you to come back forever and we want you to send all your people to us. So again, it's not as easy as saying it's $250, you know, and sometimes people keep pushing and keep pushing. I'll say, well, you know, there's almost nobody, unless you had crazy business stuff going on, at least here in Utah, there's almost nobody that's more than $300. If you don't have any business stuff or rental properties, it's pretty rare that you're over $300. Like it really, so like, again, I don't lead with that, but that is, you know, okay, we can say that because some people, they also won't tell you what they're afraid of. They're afraid of, well, they got charged $550 last year. Well, we're not even close to that. You know, we're not going to charge a $550 for a normal tax return. So just feel that out, but mostly you're going to talk to them about it. And if you can know these key points, things we can say, you know, S Corps and partnerships start at $345. And then also, you know, and most of our S Corps and partnerships are less than $500, even the kind of weird ones, you know. And I'll say there are some that are like, whoa, complex, that are crazy, that are more, that's fine, but most aren't. You know, most are right in there. I'm using the word most a lot. And again, back to how we compare to others and that they can go to see the different reviews, right? Any questions about these with pricing? Excellent. For sure. Have you run into anything talking to people on the phones that would be useful? Of course, I asked her like right at one time.
I've gotten 3 phone calls today. So
oh yay, okay, Justin. Yeah, so the ads are out. So we want you to answer the phone.
Eh.
How did they go? Tell us how those conversations went.
Good. I sent you a text, Christy. So, old CPA who actually was in my ward is dropping clients like flies. I'm wondering if me and you want to try and talk to him
Yeah, we want to try to talk to them, and we just want to say, hey, anybody, if you could
because
get,
I'm getting a lot of his people calling me.
yep, if he'll send us people, we're happy to basically buy those clients from him. You know, if he's
Yeah.
willing to proactively go out there and do that, and we can talk about the price because some old CPAs didn't care. Like, sure, send me $50 per person that comes in. Great. Others wanted an actual price. We could see what he wants, but we'd love to take care of him. That'd be awesome. That's an awesome jumpstart. Awesome. Okay, so don't be too afraid. Like, you're just gonna talk to the people, and then once they want to schedule, it's great to like, okay, great, let's get you in, and then we're going straight to, is there a better day or time for you? Okay, great. How about this time? Does that work? Okay, great. And then what we'll be sending to them is they'll get to schedule. We have to have their email address unless they're old and don't have an email, and then don't harass them about not having an email. So here's like this balance, right? Of like, the more we can get people to follow our system, the smoother it goes, the less errors we have because they fit in this system and they did everything they were supposed to do. So this is what we want. But we will also have a large group of people that do not have an email address, that are never in a million years going to use the client portal, that we will spend hours of our life trying to get them to do these things when we could have just said, oh, that's fine, I'll take your cash, I'll see you next year, you know, and that would have been okay. So especially for clients that are not complex, we can have a whole lot more flexibility. People don't want it to be too complicated, right? So we have to, we kind of live in between these two worlds right now, where we have this older generation that like often is not great with technology. Some people still do not have email addresses or are never going to check it. It's never going to happen. They want to bring you the physical documents. This is what they want to do. And then we have a lot of younger people that they don't want to even see you. You know what I mean? Like, hey, can't I just upload some stuff? Like, great. And we kind of have to be able to be okay in both worlds, right? And what that ends up doing is it does cause more work for us, because what we have is one system to track everything. So if they're going through the online system, great, it gets in there. If they're not, because they're never going to use their portal, well, we still create a portal for them. We still put their documents there. We still do absolutely everything as if it was the same, but they never get on there. That's okay. And so some of these things we have to then go and input, or we have to go do a couple of other steps to make it all match in the end on our internal system, but that's okay. Like those things are doable, especially with easy people. So that's why I'm like, people, again, what do they not want to feel like? They don't want to feel like they're being talked down to. They don't want to feel like they're being treated like they're stupid. Like if they don't have an email, they really might not have an email, like especially if they're older. So I guess use judgment on that. But then I will say, especially like if this is like a 30 something and they're telling me they don't have an email, I'm like, okay, that's fine. But like everything is so much smoother if we can get your email address. That way we can get your docs ahead of time. We can send you the stuff. We could like these things. We do want those things. So use your judgment in those really specific areas, especially with older people. But other people that need a little nudge, the more we can get them to follow the system, the happier they will be, because it will be more accurate and they will be done faster. All of the things will be done better if they will just follow the system. Okay, so in this doc, and I'll share these into our chat right now too, are a few documents that I'm going to share. So this first one is the step-by-step 1040.
Christy, real quick, before we
Yeah.
get past pricing, is pricing usually the biggest hurdle or question that people ask up front?
New clients cold calling, yes. Referrals, no.
Okay.
All three of mine today were pricing.
Mhm.
Okay. And do you ever lead with you get $20 off your first year and $20 per referral? Like, do you throw that in there at all? Or
Yep, I would totally throw that in there. Yep.
Okay.
As one of the things. The big thing is, I think, to anchor it to how we compare to H&R Block or a traditional CPA firm, because they also don't know what people are charging. Like, you know, like what does $300 mean? Well, what if $300 is a screaming deal, but it sounds terrible? You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
or we could be off by that too. But yeah, so any of those things that are like the tips, those are great things to like have to be able to share. And what you'll also get, especially with people who are calling off of an ad, they're calling to find out price, and they may not make an appointment right then. But guess what? They'll probably call back in a couple of weeks and make an appointment. Like, you want to be nice and friendly on the phone and not pushy. And you want to give them the information without feeling like you're withholding, right? Because again, there's not another place they can go that's actually going to be better. So they might decide to do it on their own because they really don't have $200. They might, okay, that they're going to pay 120 to do on TurboTax. Great. But they're likely going to remember and call back in a few weeks, or they'll call back next year after this year it was terrible doing it on their own. So like every interaction, we're like sowing seeds for the future. Like maybe they won't schedule right now, but guess what? They might schedule next week. Or guess what? Maybe they won't schedule right now, but when they'll talk to their friend about it, they'll say, yeah, I called that place. They said they're about $170, so I didn't schedule. And their friend will go, wow, I paid $350 at my guy last year. That's a deal. And they'll go, really? I think they'll start to talk about it. So like how you interact with them really matters. It matters more than getting them scheduled right now on the books, right? Like you want them to feel like you're a real person, like you're not trying to trick them. You know what I mean? Like we're being straightforward with what we have to offer. Like that's basically all we really can hope for, right? Is they can really get a chance to see who we really are and how we really would treat them, right? We don't want to be tricking them or make them feel that way. So it's really, really important how you make them feel on those phone calls, on your interactions with them when they come in. Like Justin's had this, like people will just stop by the office. They'll just like drive by and stop in, like, yeah, I saw your sign. I just come in, like they'll come in. Great. How do you make them feel while they're there? Like that's really, really important. They will remember that. And again, and maybe they still won't schedule now, but I bet they will in a couple years. Like at some point down the line, if they were looking for somebody, they'll either still be looking for somebody, or they'll have fired the person in the meantime they hired instead of us, and they'll be looking again. Like it's going to happen. So every interaction with a client, we're thinking more than just right now, right? We're thinking, how can I start making them feel this way and building the type of rapport that they at least liked being in there. Maybe they still didn't schedule with me, but that was a nice place. And that was a nice person. Okay. Still didn't want to schedule with them, but that was a nice person, like, okay, like that actually is going to pay off down the line. Because it's interesting how we get people referred to us by people who never scheduled with us, and they still referred somebody else to us, and they don't come to us. They go to somebody else, but they don't really love their guy. And so they referred us to somebody else. It's very interesting. So just remember that, like these referrals are what we really want. And those are going to come from the way that we make people feel and how we're going to train them when we interact with them. And we're going to talk a lot about that on Wednesday too. Okay, let's go here to this step-by-step 1040. It's so fun. And I'm excited for you guys to be with Kennedy and Natalie, because you'll actually get to do some taxes. That's very fun. Okay. We'll do the cheat sheet first. Cheat sheet's more of an overview. Come on, little computer. Also things to remember. You never have to be like embarrassed that you don't have something memorized. We're going to have you memorize some things, but like some things we'll never have you memorize because they're going to change too often. And we're okay telling clients that. Also, a lot of times, I used to memorize all this stuff. And guess what? The IRS is so crazy. They change stuff so frequently. It's like, no, I'm just going to check it. I'm going to double check it that it's right. So, yep, I'm going to type it in right now. We're going to double check that it's right. Like that gets me out of it every time when I'm looking something up. You know what I mean? Okay, that's how I'm going to explain that why I'm Googling this. Let me tell you why I'm Googling this. Because the IRS is the worst and they keep changing it. And I memorized it 1,000 times and it was off. So let's just go double check. And then they're not so freaked out that you're Googling something, right? But part of that is telling them, if you just start Googling something, they start getting a little nervous. Why is this person just Googling this, right? Okay, so let's start with the tax return. So here's basically what's going to happen. So, and we're going to have these, like, we'll make them prettier, but like they're actually at your location, like at your computer. So you have them to follow. The first thing that we're going to do is create or review their TaxDome profile. So if they already existed, great. If not, first, we're going to make sure they're in TaxDome. We have their information right. We're going to update certain boxes. Then what we do is we go into Drake. And in Drake, the first thing that we're going to do, and we'll walk through this, is we're going to update their personal information, which is all on screen 1. We're going to update screen 2, which is their ID and their direct deposit. And then we're going to go straight to asking, are there any changes from last year? From this question, we ask about dependents. And then while we're at dependents, we're going to talk about daycare and education. Then we're going to ask about marketplace stuff. So our first step is like all their personal info. Then we do changes from last year and go into kids, which tied with kids is daycare and education, and then the marketplace. And how I've described this before, and again, this is when I talk about like we're gonna do the same thing every time, this is what it is. We're going to ask the same questions every time. We're going to input the same things every time. We're not gonna start with W-2s and then come back to this one. No. Like we're gonna organize our stuff and then we're gonna enter it in the same way. And what we'll really do is like for a client that's come into the office, I will take their documents from them and organize them and put them in the order that I want them before I start inputting anything. Like it's robotic, right? But it will help us go so much faster. I can take their stuff and go, yep, there's W-2s. Yep, there's 1099s. Yep, there's the house. Here's this. I'm going to get my stacks pretty and beautiful and ready. And now I can just go through my list and we can see what they have. So by the time we're actually getting ready to put stuff into the computer, it's like in order, and we're going to do our stuff in the right order every single time. So the first one is going to be screen number 1, which is their personal information, entering in the stuff, or for clients that were there a prior year, it will be double checking stuff. And all of you have the potential that you could have some returning clients, because if there's anybody that was in North Ogden that is happy to be seen at a different location, then we can move their Drake file over there. So you might have some Drake files if clients were in North Ogden but are now moving over. So let me pull up. I'm pulling up Drake. 1 second. And really, like, I'm not going to spend even too much time like showing all things. So what's going to be helpful to you is like, here's a practice return, go do it. Here's my little steps, go do it. Like that is going to actually be useful versus just seeing it done, but we'll do the little review. So, okay, so here we have in Drake, when I come into the client, the first thing that I'm doing is I'm going to screen 1. Screen 1 is where it has all their information. So first, what we have to fill out is their filing status. So actually, let me just create a whole new one. Let's pretend it's a new client. So let's say this is a new client they've never been in before. I'm going to go to open or create. And I'm going to type in their social. That's fake social, right? Yes, I'm going to create shoot. I'm going to have you verify the social. And then we're going to mark what type of return are we doing. A 1040, a C Corp, we're not doing C Corps, an S Corp or partnership. Really what you're doing for the most part in the beginning is these 1040s. And then the name of the taxpayer. I'm sorry, of the tax client. Now, generally, again, when we do things the exact same way, our accuracy goes up. Every time we, go off the path, the accuracy goes down and we slow down. How we'd like to do this is when a man and woman are married, we'd like to list the man first as the taxpayer. That's just systematically how we have it. Because everything that we mark in Drake for income, like if it's a W-2 or a 1099, we need to mark whose it is, the taxpayer or the spouse. Sometimes this doesn't matter, but there are certain times that it does matter whose it is. And most of the time it does matter whose it is. And so it's really important that we have the right box T or S marked. If we keep jumping back and forth to who's listed as a spouse and who's listed as a taxpayer, we just make more mistakes on tagging the right T and the right S to the right person. So for simplicity's sake, we're going to list the man as the taxpayer and the woman as the spouse. Now, If that is not how they want it done, and especially if on, and really I only address it if I can see their last year's taxes and I can see that she was listed first and not him. I will say, hey, I see, Sarah, that you're listed first as a tax preparer, as the tax client. Is there a reason why you're listed first or that you need to be listed first? And she's like, well, I was just doing it. I said, well, if you don't mind, I'm going to swap it back within our system. If we just put him first, it just helps us be more accurate and make sure that we're on the same page. For most people, that's totally fine. It's fine for everybody except those who intentionally want it the other way, which is also fine, right? Like, this is their taxes. And if she wants to be listed first, she can. So we're also not going to fight with the client because she wants to be listed first. This is not the battle to fight, right? No. If they don't care, then I'm just going to say, hey, do you mind if I swap this back? And we're going to list, Greg as the taxpayer. That's just going to help us be more accurate and stay in line with our system. And so still sometimes, oh, no, I don't want that. Okay, that's fine. No big deal. We'll leave it like this. But then I'll make a big note, that she is the taxpayer. And you'll have to keep that in mind. So if you're looking at their tax return last year and he's listed as the taxpayer and she is his spouse, then just do the same. Like, you don't have to address it. Nobody cares. They didn't care last year. They're not going to care this year. List it in that order. If she's first, ask them if they mind swapping it. That will just get better with our system and we will make less errors. If there's any hesitation at all, don't push it. That's fine. Great. That's totally great. And if you have a same-sex couple, somewhere you've got to indicate on their TaxDome file who is the taxpayer. Otherwise, we'll get confused there too. Because one person has to be the taxpayer, one person has to be the spouse. It can change every year. We don't want it to, because then we get confused. We confuse ourselves. But within that specific tax return, someone has to be the taxpayer and someone has to be the spouse. They can swap it next year if they want. There's no point in swapping it from our side. You know what I mean? It actually just creates more confusion. So we want to keep it consistent. So if two dudes come in and they're married, we want to mark who is the taxpayer and who is the spouse and do it the same way next year, just for our own consistency. There's not like a requirement from the IRS that it's done that way. It's just so that we know which one is which as we're having to mark the boxes of whose W-2 it is, right? So let's do this one. This is going to be Allison test. So I'm starting a file for Allison. Allison's married. So another thing that will get you trained on with Drake, because Drake is old school, like 90s, you will be faster at Drake if you can learn to try to use your keyboard. The more times you have to touch your mouse, it will slow you down, which seems like not a big deal, but when you get to the type of volume and production that we're aiming for, being slowed down by touching your mouse does make a big deal. So one thing that's awesome about Drake is that we can fly through it, but it's like a different language and it's on the keyboard. So for example, I hit escape, that takes me back to, this is like the main data entry home screen. Within this client's file, I can see that it's Allison's file. Here's her social. I can see that it's 2023. If I can take my mouse and go up and click on the number one screen, and that will bring me here. But much faster is if I go and just type in one enter. And how you should all be doing this if you want to be fast and make money is with your right hand on the 10 key. And again, that sounds like maybe super particular. No, it's a tip. If you want to be fast and accurate and make more money, you need to learn to use the 10 key. With Drake, there's just so much input. So that's just the reality of it. You will be faster and more accurate that way, even if it's harder in the beginning because you're not used to it. So here I can mark, if she's single, I can mark a 1. If she's married, I can mark a 2. There's other filing stats. Now I can touch my mouse and come up and see what the options are. And of course, especially in the beginning, as you're getting to know the software, you might need to use the mouse more to like touch that box and see, like look at the drop downs, things like that. But as soon as you can get to less of a mouse, the better it will all be. So we're going to say that she's married. So I've got a 2 and I'm just going to use enter. I'm going to enter down, which seems weird, but it's not. It's actually way faster than moving your hand over to the mouse and then moving the mouse and then moving back to the input. You can keep your little hand right on the 10 key. And the date of birth, oh, maybe she's me. and what her occupation is. Oh, I don't know. She's a nurse, and we need phone numbers. Not that. Whatever the phone number is, we need the phone number. And we need an email address, Christy. Whatever, that's not really it. And then I'm tab or enter will move the fields. Shift tab will move you the other direction. So I have my hands like always in the same places. I'm ready for my shift tab to move me back up and down. And I have my 10 key ready to go for the data entry, because it's not just the numbers, it's getting me to the field where I need to go. So here's for the spouse. And actually what we would have done had this been real, you can't actually do it this way, but let's say this wasn't Alice, let's say this was Albert. Okay, if this was Albert, because we want him to be first. And what you couldn't do, what I just did, if you're already to this screen one and you're like, shoot, I put the first taxpayer here. If you just come change the name, it won't work, because it won't actually change the social security number under the file. There's another way that we'll teach you how to fix that one. So put him first from that first box, right, where you're first entering the social security. So there's Albert, and then here's Allison. Okay. Now, if it has a red equals mark, that means that it's just pulling it from some other field. Anywhere in Drake where you see that, right? And that's kind of like the universal sign of like, this is coming from somewhere else. You don't need to input data here unless you want to override it. It's going to pull the last name from the taxpayer's last name. So as long as Allison's last name is Test, then I don't need to also type in Test here. If Allison does have a different last name, then I need to override, right, and put the other name here. And then it will make her Allison Smith. If I leave it blank, it's just going to be Allison Test. And I need her birthday, or she can be the same. And maybe she's just home, and that's fine. And we want her phone number. There we go. And then we'll come down here to the address. That's my address. There you go. So basic things that have to be done. We need their names, their birthdays, their socials. Like Drake won't even let you without those things. You cannot file anything without name, birthday, and social. We need an address. We want the phone numbers and emails, but Drake will let you file without the phone numbers and emails. We want them. And then we're also going to come down here and mark these two boxes, no and no. These are boxes saying, are there any foreign accounts? And did they have any sales of any digital currency? Our default is no and no, but it could be yes and yes, but the default is no. Okay, so we fill out screen number one, and then I'm going to hit escape. Now I could move my hand on my mouse and hit escape at the exit. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hit escape. At this point, there's two other forms right now that we fill out, but we're going to do it with a macro. So there is a pin screen. The pin screen is where we have to put the date, our pin signature, and it will automatically create pins for the spouse. This has to be filled out in order to electronically file the tax return. We don't fill this one out by hand. Instead, we've built it in so it can automatically be filled out, but you could overwrite it. We use the macro Alt-P. When I do an Alt-P, how I've got it set up is that it will autofill this for you. So it's going to fill out today's date, our PIN, which is the PIN for the location that you're at. And this is the ERO PIN. It's what is like the number that matches in the IRS system to allow that location to submit tax returns. So it's a number that's specific to your location, and it's the same every single time. It's not specific to you, it's specific to your location. And we'll put it on your screen too so you can see it and know what it is. Drake creates these pins, the taxpayer pin and the spouse pin. We don't have to do that. If you accidentally made a mistake and you clicked in a box here and you did something weird, what you could always do is an Alt-Delete. We'll just delete this screen, and then you could come and do it again. And Drake will pre-fill all of that again. If I come back into it. The date, today's date, the ERO's PIN, that's the business's number, and then new PIN numbers for the taxpayer and spouse. These ones change every time. These are just made up by Drake. There just has to be some PIN number that's made up that's sent for that client when they electronically file a tax return. It changes every year. It doesn't have to be specific to something. There just has to be some kind of number that is being used. Drake just makes those up. And you can make up a different one, and you could erase it and do your own if you wanted to. That would be fine. It's not the same one every year. This is different for clients who have had ID theft with the IRS and have been issued an ID PIN. So clients who have had this in the past, now the IRS sends them a new physical letter in the mail every single January with a 5-digit ID PIN. And they'll come in with their letter, with their ID PIN. When that happens, you can still do the Alt P just like normal to fill all this, but then you'll also come in here and put in their PIN number straight from their letter. And they don't, if the spouse, they don't both have to have one. So just because the taxpayer has one doesn't mean the spouse has one. Usually it's just one of them, which is all weird. If they had one last year, they have one this year. So I've yet to see one where they had one before and now they don't suddenly have one. Now, a lot of times they say I didn't get a letter. That doesn't mean they don't have one. This is another one of those rare fields that will get automatically rejected when we electronically file. If they have an ID PIN, but they didn't include the ID PIN, then it will get rejected. And we'll have to call and say, oh, hey, it looks like you have an ID PIN and we didn't have that. Oh, shoot. Yeah, I forgot about that letter. Yeah, can you go find it? Oh, shoot. Okay, we got to go back and get that. Then we can put the ID PIN in here and then we can resubmit it and then it will accept it. So at least that one is, we'll know, within that 24-hour period, basically, of when we file, if they're missing their ID PIN. So the macro for this PIN will do the PIN screen. And then it also will do the 8867. So in your class, you should have learned about the 8867. This is the one that's like all the due diligence requirements. This one's really important and what we'll do is we should go through all of them. This saying, did you complete the return based on information for tax year 2023 provided by the taxpayer or reasonably obtained by you? Yes. Now, in order for the tax return to be able to be electronically filed, this is how the boxes have to be filled out. So you can't answer them other ways and have it still be allowed to be electronically filed. But it's working as like a backup safety net, right? To make sure that you have asked the clients these questions. So when we build a macro in, what a macro is it's just a shortcut, right? It's like I can tell Drake, hey, every time you hit Alt P, I want you to hit enter once and then 4 spaces and then put an X and then space, 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 and then type this thing in. Like I can tell it what to do. So when you then enter the keys for the macro, like an Alt P, it sets Drake and makes it do all these things like that we told it to do, including go to this screen, mark all these ones yes, mark all these ones no. And so it's really convenient because then you don't have to go through and sit and ask every single one while the client's here and you can't remember which one's supposed to be yes and which one's supposed to be no, because if it's not right, you're going to get error messages and it's not going to work. And this has to be done for all of them. So it's great with convenience. However, using the macros can be problematic if there's any even close to possibility of people filing fraudulent things, because this macro is set up assuming that the client is not committing any fraud. Now, again, if we answer the questions wrong, then we can't file it. Like it's going to be like, you can't file this, right? We're kind of bypassing that measure because it takes too long, but we need to be very, very aware of certain fraudulent things. And we will talk more about those. They're particularly around earned income credit with self-employed individuals. Like if we had to narrow down what the IRS is actually concerned about, they're concerned about earned income credit with anybody that has self-employment income, because the self-employment income can be manipulated, right? We can just make it up. We could put in whatever we want and we could put in whatever expenses we want. And the IRS doesn't know it's wrong. They don't know what people actually made as self-employed people. So we can manipulate the system so their income's high or low, and that will spit out giant refunds for earned income credit. This is where there's the most fraud that takes place. And that's really why they've had all these other checklists and stuff come into play, because they're trying to be like, hey, you don't qualify, don't do these things, make sure you didn't do this. We don't want to file anything at all that's kind of sketchy. So we do this macro that takes care of the screen, But anybody that has earned income credit, we still need to come back and revisit the earned income credit rules to make sure that these people really do qualify. Then I'm okay that we use the macro. What we can't do is just use the macro and say, oh, everybody, and just assume everything's fine and everybody qualifies. Like, no. Specifically with self-employment income and the earned income credit. And that, because that's one where it's not only will this spit out fake refund amounts for them, they'll get the money. And who gets in trouble in the end with those type of refunds isn't even necessarily the taxpayer, it's us. And it's not even just us, like us, our company, it's us, like you, the preparer as well. Like you actually have a responsibility here because the IRS is so serious about this. They have slapped gigantic penalties on the preparers and on the companies that file these type of tax returns. Like we just can't do it. Now, we're not going to do it on purpose, but occasionally we will get a shifty client, especially new clients. We don't know new clients, right? If they want us to come in and do weird wacko stuff, we just can't do the weird wacko stuff. And what they need to have is they need to have their own records, especially with business stuff. They need to, like, because that's where it is. It's where they don't really have business income, but they have kids. And now they're trying to fictitiously make up the income, because how earned income credit works is you don't get it if you have no income. And you don't get it if you have too much income, but you get it if you have right on the in between. So with self-employment income, you can manipulate your income high and low, because a loss can make it go low, and making up more income can actually make it go high. And so you can actually get it right to this point where you can get them these big giant refunds just by typing in a few different numbers. And the IRS has no good way of checking that. And so it's super, super easy to actually get the IRS to send people money for these things. Versus, like, you can't make up a W-2. The IRS is going to check the transcript and know about the W-2. The IRS doesn't know about the self-employment income. So we're going to have to be very, very, very careful. And we'll go over the rules for earned income credit. And it's in your class too, that you've been through. Like, it's just, it is so important. And it's, again, self-employment with earned income credit. And we'll also say head of household. Those three things, right, are the primary the ones, because they're very tied together with credits for kids living with you. It matters. The filing status matters. And we'll talk about filing status tomorrow. Where they're physically living matters. The income matters. All of these things actually do impact something. The client doesn't necessarily know. They just say, hey, I've always filed like this. Well, it doesn't matter. If it's wrong, we're not going to do it, right? Like, sorry, you've been filing it wrong for forever. That doesn't mean we're going to go back and make you tell the IRS and make you go amend your returns that we think were wrong. No, but we can't file that way. We need to file it right. Or we're happy to not file it. Either one is fine, but we're not going to file it the wrong way, especially in these categories that we know are high risk and get flagged, and the penalties are giant for you, the preparer. Like, they're absurd. So it's like, no, we do not want to do this thing. So I bring that because
That's so funny. Like, I'm all of those things. I am that person.
Mhm. Yep.
That's so funny.
Which means, if I wanted to, Katie, I could take your tax return, I could spit it out to get the most money back, and I could just make it up and get your refunds back. And it happens all the time. So there's a lot of really, really sketchy tax places out there. There just are, it's a whole huge giant industry. So, and then they'll just shut down and go somewhere else. And so there are oftentimes, we will find clients that it was done wrong last year. They got giant refunds back. They don't actually qualify. And guess what? They're going to be mad at you that you're not going to give them that money this year. And well, gee, there we go. Then you might just have to be mad at me. Like, we can't. And your people did do it wrong. And at the same time, I'm not going to be like, I don't need to, like, I'm not like calling the IRS to turn you in. It's not that kind of stuff, but we can't do it. And I'm looking at this, and you know what, guys, this is a big giant red flag. And this is, the IRS rules are really like this. And I'll blame the IRS again all the time. And you know what? The IRS, they're getting so much more picky on this stuff. Man, they're paying attention to this stuff. Maybe in the past, they didn't pay attention so much. They're really paying attention now. Like, we can't do it. Like, they're getting really picky about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just trying to frame it that way so they don't feel so attacked. Because a lot of times they didn't tell their tax preparer to do it. Their tax preparer went in, got them all this money, and charged them a super high fee. And that's how the system works. And so the taxpayer does it. The the taxpayer gets more money. The preparer took a ton more money, but they got them more money. So then everybody was happy, but it was done wrong, right? And the taxpayer is now at risk because of it. Happens all the time. So when we see those things like we're going to correct them, we're going to correct them. And most people are on board with the corrections. Some aren't. And again, nobody has to file. We don't have to file for anybody. So like if they don't want to file, like that's okay. Like we can end here and that can be fine. You know, I'll blame it on like, I just can't. I am not allowed to do this. Like can't do it. And you know what, you guys, man, the IRS is getting so picky about this stuff and it is a nightmare to deal with them. You do not want to deal with them. They are so awful. They're so awful, especially for stuff like this. And the classic client phrase from, I don't know if Diamond, you remember who one of Mont's clients, and his phrase always was, it's not a problem till it's a problem. It's not a problem till it's a problem. Oh, this guy would do the shiftiest stuff all the time. Oh, it's fine. Not a problem till it's a problem, which is really true with the IRS. It's not a problem till it's a problem. And many problems are never caught. And so it's never a problem. But when it is a problem, it's a big one. And these clients are going to be calling you furious that they now have to pay back $8,000 to the IRS plus penalties and interest. And they're going to be ticked off at you. And it's going to all be your fault. You know what I mean? When they get in trouble, even if it was they were the ones that were pushing for it. So it's like, no, we're not doing it. We're just not doing it. So be very aware. But the Alt P will save us lots and lots and lots of time, because especially all the people that they don't have earned income credit or kids, we still have to mark all the boxes. So this is like seriously going to save so much time, but we need to know for earned income credit, for self-employment income, for head of household, for these three things, we are still going to circle back around to verify. We have to. And then the macro really just helps check the boxes for everybody else. This macro is also set up to leave you on this screen, which is the IDS screen, because you have to put in their ID information. Now, the IRS does not require a taxpayer's ID. It's not a requirement. We act like it's required because we sure want it. We also don't have to have it, but we really want it. And I bring that up because, like, especially if anything's ever shifty, like even kind of shifty, even kind of the shifty vibes, like we're not budging an inch. We got to have the ID. Like, nope, we're having the ID. You're just, nope, got to have it. There might be a case like, okay, Granny is 95 and Granny is in the old folks home and Granny doesn't have a driver's license and Granny doesn't, you know, like something like this where like nothing else is a red flag. This is not, nobody's there stealing her ID. You know what I mean? They've got everything else. Everything else seems in order. We aren't actually required to have it. The IRS doesn't make us have it. Drake doesn't even make us have it. We can say taxpayer did not provide a driver's license or state issue photo ID. So either you're going to enter in the ID information, taxpayer and spouse, or you need to mark that they did not have it. And one can have it and one not. That's fine too, but you'll keep hitting errors. Drake will prompt you and catch with errors until you do this piece. So that's why we put it right here at the end of this macro to make you do it. I also don't require, like when we're filing for a dependent, like the 15-year-old, or no, dependent, obviously Mark didn't have one, didn't provide one, that's fine. If you're only filing for one person, like they're single and you mark both boxes, you're going to get an error message. So you just want the one box marked, or if they're married, you're going to need either this or this for each person. And again, you'll find out quick because you'll hit errors and Drake will kick you back to the screen if you don't do it. So you'll quick get used to that one. But we need the ID screen filled out. So I do the macro and then I come back to here, and that's kind of like the first things that I do in Drake, period. Like I haven't even started any of their stuff yet. Like I haven't even like entered any real information. All I've done is like check their name and their address and their social. And then I did the macro that filled out the boxes and got it like ready to file. And then that's it. But this is like this prep step. We're going to do all of the prep and all of the work that we can do before we even start entering things in. It's like cleaning as you cook, right? Like we're cleaning all the stuff up so that as soon as we are ready to go, it's done. Kitchen's cleaned. We're packing up. We're moving on to the next one. We're not waiting till the end. And we're gonna pause here with this, and we'll review this part quickly and then go on to the rest of the steps tomorrow. And I'll show you a little bit more about what I mean with the macros, because we don't have to use the macros. They are very fast. They are very helpful. but you need to understand what they're doing, because they're just meant to help and they're not the truth. You know what I mean? Like they're a helpful tool, but what we have to do is we have to file things correctly. And the responsibility is on us to file things correctly, even if we had a macro. Or even if it didn't matter, like we still have to know the inner workings. And what we'll talk about tomorrow too is we're going to finish out like the steps of actually going through Drake, what it looks like. And we're going to spend time talking about and looking at reading the tax returns, and how for you to become very proficient and very good, what you need to learn to do is to read a tax return. If you can read a tax return, you'll be able to file a tax return. Like you absolutely will, because you can work backwards. If you can't read the tax return, then it's like you're blind and you're putting numbers in and you're hitting enter and you hope it's right, but you have no idea of knowing until you learn to read the tax return, because then you can see what something actually did and match it with what was it supposed to do. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow too. Tomorrow we will also plan on we'll take breaks every hour and a half, 2 hours, like that, as we're pushing through these things. We'll go through those things. I want you to come tomorrow too if you have other lists of questions that have been like gnawing at you. I know there's still a lot to learn and there's a lot you're going to be taught, but like as you have your list of questions, please bring those as well. And then what time is it? 2:47. Oh, I really want to talk about stats. We'll just talk about stats tomorrow. Let me add that to, we're talking about Drake and we're gonna talk about stats. But let me mention just a couple quick things about stats. So we're going to teach the fundamentals, like how to do the tax return. You got to interact with the clients. We're going to talk about client interaction. In order for you to make money preparing taxes, it is incredibly important that you know what your numbers are as far as production goes, because everything that we're doing is on scale. Little differences make a huge difference. So let me pull over just kind of an example, right? Like, let me just grab my spreadsheet. Oh, I just want the sheet. Hold on. So we have basically 11 and a half weeks of actual tax season. That's like actually in tax season, right? Okay, so we have 11 and a half weeks. And every single day, Monday to Friday, in theory, there's about 10 hours open. Let's say about 9 hours open. And then on Saturdays, let's say there's 8 hours open. So we have 5 days at this, we have 1 at that, right? So what is this? What do we got? Well, 45 and 8, something like this. What does that leave us? 53 hours, okay? So we have 53 hours, which if you're cooking and if you were going like so fast and so up to speed, right? And like you could schedule every half an hour and be fine. So this is a Kennedy, this is Natalie, right? This is like, and this is Justin, like you, and they could do more than this, but like because even that half an hour actually is a buffer, is somewhat of a buffer once you actually get going. So we're saying that we have 53 hours, which could be potentially 106 regular appointments per week. Okay? But we only have 11 and a half weeks. So if we did 106 appointments times 11 and a half weeks, that's going to be a whole lot of tax returns. These were the people making a lot of money every year. This is who makes a lot of money. Is when you can get your production up to these levels. If you can get to where you're working full time and your schedule is full, if you did 1,200 tax returns, you are going to make money. Because even if, let's say, the average price, because we're doing discounts, is 170, which hopefully it's even higher, that's bringing in revenue of about $200,000. And then times your commission percentage, that's going to be a lot of money. But I bring this up because, yes, we want to get to these higher numbers. but it all matters how many appointments you have every day. So this is if you have 9 hours open, right, on these days, that means, well, you could, once you're up to speed, have up to 18 appointments per day, right? And on Saturdays, you could have 16 appointments. You're not going to have that in the very beginning. In the very beginning, because we're going to block off every other one until you're good anyway. So the faster you can get good, the more appointments we're going to give you, period, right? So you want to get good faster so you can take the volume. But let me show you, like, what does it look like if, let's go from this 106, right? So if instead of 106, which there's 106 potential hours if you're doing this, what if instead you only did 7 appointments per day? Okay, really, I just need to build the spreadsheet. Okay, so if you had 7 appointments per day, and let's say that you did that for 6 days a week, right? That's going to give you 42. Okay. Now, if you have 42, and 7 a day, that's going to spit you out now revenue of 82,000, then times your commission. It's way, way less. What if you have 10 a day? Now you're up to 117. What if you have 15 a day? Now you're getting higher. Like, every single day that you are at the office to see clients matters. An extra 2 appointments a day, an extra 3 appointments a day. These add up because we're working at scale. So let's say that every single day you're off by even 2. Okay. Let's say you're even off by 2 appointments that you didn't have, or that you didn't have those hours open, or that you didn't get finished. And let's say that you're working at a 30% commission, and people are different commission depending on your positions. But if this was you, okay, so 2 appointments a day to you in your pocket is going to make at least a $7,000 difference at the end, which is going to be more than 10% of what you're making. You know what I mean? Like, it's huge, which also means you look at what is scheduled, and especially for all of you new people who were not going to have you booked solid every 30 minutes for the first while until you can handle it. The workaround is if you can fit in tax returns before and after. So clients will send things in, we'll have drop off, they'll come, they'll bring in their stuff, they'll leave them, there'll be stuff that you didn't finish before, things that they're there to do. If you can do an extra 2 or 3 tax returns at night, then over the 10 weeks, you've now got another $10,000 that you've made by squeezing in another 2 or 3. Now, if you are psycho, like Matt's psycho, and Matt was always the most psycho at this, right? Like, and Matt's going to stay after, and he's going to do another 7 every night. Okay. Well, sticking around for another hour and a half to bust out another 7 means that he made another $25,000 by the end of the 10 weeks. Like, it's just like the railroad tracks analogy, like when you were a youth and they're like, man, if you're off by a few degrees, now you're going to end up in Florida instead of New York, and you wanted to be in New York, now you're in Florida. That's how it's going to work here, because we're working at scale. So every single time slot really matters. Every single appointment really matters. Turning these clients into more clients to fill your schedule really matters. Like, we have to do this stuff at scale for it to work. Like, if you're only going to come and say, okay, we have, 5 appointments a day, that's 30 a week, that's 300 total. Okay, well, that's not going to make you very much money. I mean, that's nice if you were like a college kid and could make 20 grand in 10 weeks. Cool. That's not going to pay the bills. It's not enough. Now, if you're working super part-time, that's fine, but like, that's not what we're looking for. We want to get you to the range where every day you're doing at least 10 to 15. Because if you're doing at least, but even then that's like, oh, like that should be like minimum, because really we're thinking if you could schedule every half an hour, 10's not so many. 10's not so many, right? Versus, man, if you had 10 hours open, you could do 20. And if you stayed after, if you look at some of the stats, and we'll have the stats, if we look at this, the stats, people are working super crazy. There will be days of 20 tax returns, 22 tax returns, 24 tax returns. Okay. Because what happens if you do 22 tax returns? Like, the revenue number just goes up so much. It's like every single day, the more that you can squeeze in and the more that you can produce, the bigger that number is going to be at the end. And you can't wait until April to suddenly decide to go crazy and try to do as much work as you can. Like, you will have missed it. It's like from day one that we're there, how do I do as many tax returns today as possible? And not only do I want to do them, I want to finish them, and I want to collect the money, and I want to get the person out the door so I can get the next one in. If I have to revisit the same tax return every day for 3 days, my numbers are going to drop because I'm spending my time on something that I couldn't finish before. We want to be efficient. We want to finish them. We want to collect the money and get the client on their way. And that happens by following the system. And we'll teach you also how to know when to stop, when to kick a client out of the office, because we don't have time. If we can't finish today, we don't want to spend an hour today talking about it. If I know I can't finish your tax return and collect your money today, we need to be collecting money every single day from these tax returns. That's what's going to get you to the numbers in the end. And then if you really want to excel with what you're going to produce and bring home, you're thinking to yourself, I have my open office hours and I'm trying to do stuff in between appointments. And if I'm really trying to earn some money, because this is the only window, I'm thinking, what can I do at night? What can I do in the morning? Maybe I'm staying late a couple nights a week. That's what I would do. I would stay till midnight or 1 a.m. a couple nights a week. And it's okay, because when the phones weren't ringing and I could just bust some more out, great, because an extra 5 a week, cool. An extra 5 a week is gonna really add up in the end, right? Because that's gonna be what, another 5 a week is gonna get me more money. That didn't add up. You know what I mean? Okay. So, and we will show you that, how we're going to track it. Like, we're going to track all of the stats. Now, we track these stats, not even to compete against each other, because I don't care how much money you want to make. I want you to make money, and I want you to make the money whatever you want to make. But I don't care if you want to make all the money or if you want to make a little, like that. To me, I actually don't care. Like, some people want to work less and make less, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Some people want to work all of the things now and make as much money as possible now. Great. Don't care. I want you to make what you want to make. But if you want to make more money, you have to know from the very beginning that it's going to be tracked, and you have to track it, and you have to know, how many did I do today? Because the difference between 8 and 12 is going to be huge in the end. Did I do 8 today or did I do 12 today? I mean, it doesn't sound like that many, but actually, real quick, in 11 weeks, I'm going to have 20 grand less than what I was hoping I was going to have. So we have it tracked, and the office tracks these stats because we track them based on the money that's collected. You know, those papers that you have clients sign that go in the bin, that's what you get paid for. You don't get paid until those go in the bin. When those go in the bin, that means, great, we've collected money from the client, we're ready to file for the client. It goes on your list and gives you credit for who you filed for. And so we know exactly how much you've collected, we know exactly how many tax returns you've done, and we know that every single day. And we do that because that's what I had to do in the very beginning, because it's like, I need to know every single day how many tax returns I'm doing, what my revenue is. And then I'm going to track it for this week. Where am I this week? Where am I week 2? Where am I week 3? Because we have such a short window, right? Like, if we're off a couple weeks, we don't have them for another 52 weeks to make it back up. Like, it's so important in this intense little piece of time. So we'll be sharing those. You'll have access the whole time to those spreadsheets that are created, that you don't have to babysit. You put the 8879s in the box, then the data will get put on the spreadsheets for you with every single client, how much was collected and what your numbers are, how much revenue you've produced, so that we can see it and so that we can track it. And and again, we're tracking it not to compare you against somebody else. I don't think there's necessarily a better or a worse way, but it's going to be different to get you the different results that you want. So the stuff's there, but it's just, know that it's not like oh, you're failing this week, you're doing bad. No, it's like, but dude, if you want to make the money, you need to go do more. We have never, and I don't think we ever plan to really force anybody to work extra hours to go do more tax returns. Like, there's enough people around that would be happy to be crazy and stay and do extra work, that if it's more than what you want, we have other people that do want it. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I mean, like, you could take what you want. And if you want to be done, and you want to be done at 7 and not have to deal with anything else, there are other people who would love to come and do the stuff after hours, because it's just more money, and we got 10 weeks. So know that, like, we're not going to babysit you with this. because to me, I see it as like, there's this really valuable thing that's there. And if you don't want it, that really is okay because somebody else does. And you can still come and work the normal hours. We're not gonna like kick you out of your normal hours. No, you can still have those. But it's this other stuff and fitting it in that is super valuable that I really want to encourage you. Like if you're gonna work tax season, to think about going just crazy for 11 weeks. Like going crazy for 11 weeks to be able to make an extra $15,000 or $20,000 for the whole rest of the year. Yeah, maybe I'm going crazy for 11 weeks. And I'm building that into my schedule and I'm letting all of my people know, and this is where you can find me and stop by for lunch and come and see me and come and bring me a drink and I'll see you on Sunday, you know, and it's going to be great. And we're all going to go somewhere fun in the spring, or, you know what I mean? Like I will see you again, people, in 10 weeks. This is the opportunity. And then it's gone. And just, and you're going to be checking, like, this is again, Matt, so good. What's Matt so good at? Every single day you could ask him, he knew exactly what his numbers were. He knew how many tax returns he had done. He knew what his revenue was at because he was tracking it. And so who was always the highest? Matt, because he's on it. He knew what he needed to get to because he knew how much money he wanted to make. And then for other people, like if we're just having fun, which is also okay, you can also just have fun and not be a psycho about it, which is totally acceptable. There's nothing right or wrong about either one. But if you want to make the money, you've got to go a little psycho and you've got to know your numbers. And by the numbers, like how many tax returns are being filed, and how many are you filing, and how many are actually getting finished too. Like, because again, nobody gets paid for anything until it gets in the basket. Got to get it in the basket. Until it gets in the basket, doesn't matter. We want to be able to do more and more quickly. We'll talk about this tomorrow too. So come with your questions. Operators, let's not meet today. We'll build that into meeting tomorrow because we went longer today than I thought we were going to do.